When I plug things into Unreal Engine, they go perfectly every time. They play as expected. I never need to bug fix. I never need to find a sound that's playing. I never need to check that it's virtual. I never need to cut down on my voices because something isn't playing. And I never need to find out why a thing that says it's playing isn't, and why the volume's wrong and the attenuation's wrong and they don't show in the editor and they don't show. Today, we're going to be using some profiling tools. We're going to work out what are some of the debug commands that we can run to determine where sounds are supposed to be, whether they're playing at all, whether they are playing from the right perspective, whether they are certain distances from the listener, how loud things are. For this, we're going to be using some console variables, native Unreal Engine code that exists in UE5.5. We're also going to be using a new product by SweejTech Audio Inspector. Now, we're in the Matrix demo today. We're going to be using a combination of the native Unreal console variables, and we're going to be using the SweejTech Audio Inspector. I'm going to kind of A/B and show you what information you get from each. So if you hit the tilde key, which is next to your number 1 key on your keypad, what you can start typing is all manner of controls, really. Basically, every single letter of the alphabet will give you some console variable, and you can, as I do sort of once per year, you can dump them all out and have a read. The very first ones you probably want to look at, and this is the one that everyone would know, is this au.debug.sounds. This Debug.Sounds, it's going to be a little bit strange, because if I kind of hit enter, nothing really happens. And the reason nothing happens is because all of these console variables are asking, okay, but what's the argument that you want me to pass? So for a lot of them, it's kind of a 1 or a 0, so a true or a false. And if I hit 1, you kind of see the sounds for all of the active sound sources. Now, some of these could be meta sounds, they could be sound waves, they could be sound cues, they could be anything, and they will all show up in this active sound. So you can see I have a bunch of hatchbacks and a bunch of traffic sounds and some distant vehicles and things like that. You can see in the far left there, it has distance. So it has index, which sound number it is, and it'll only show up to a certain number. I think most of the time it defaults at about 32. It's a pretty useful starting point, but there can actually be more sounds happening. It's just showing you 32 of them. It'll show you the audio device down the bottom. It'll show you, there you go, max sounds displayed 32. It'll show you some of the total sounds that are playing and where the listener position is. And if I swing my camera around, that'll change a little bit as well. So we got some information. We have this distance. Now, distance is useful, but it's not actually the only way that we can sort things. So for example, if I go in here and I write Debug.Sounds, you can see I have max for the max number of sounds. I have show path if I want to see the full length of the path, and I have sort. So I'm actually going to look at sort, and the way sort works, it has a couple of key arguments. I could sort by sound class, and you can see now they're all just set to sound class master. I could sort by distance, which will show me the distance everything's away, and it's going to show me the closest sounds first and going all the way up. Handy to have a look and work out, hey, something's really far away, or I thought it was closer, but it actually turns out to be very far away. One of the ways you'll catch something like world 0 offset errors, which we're going to look at a little bit later, saying like, oh, I'm pretty sure this is playing on the character, and it turns out it's playing 8,000 meters away, but it has no attenuation on it. We can sort by the time, which will be when they were fired, how long they've been active rather than when they were fired. So the latest ones right down the bottom there, like happening just, you know, under a second ago. But then the ones right at the top, you have 400 seconds ago, 1200 seconds ago, just depending on what's been running. You can see when they were virtualized as well, and that's a concept of taking it so that when we don't hear it, we're not wasting physical voices. And you can see in this display the virtualization state. We'd have to actually look at that and say, oh, okay, so of the 32 sounds that are playing, well, 3 to 13, those 10 are actually virtualized, so we're actually only playing 23 sounds, which is why we want to look at sorting by volume. And when we sort by volume, we'll get the decibel rating. Now, that's kind of all you're going to get out of Debug.Sounds. It is useful, but you can see you do need to run several commands to get there. You sort of got to do one, look at distance, do another one, look at something else. One of the other components that I think that you should know about is 3D visualize, and au.3dvisualize.enabled. Usually be active sounds. You turn active sounds on. The reason that I'm not getting necessarily like all the car honks and stuff is because of this active sounds type. Now, active sounds type is useful because it has 3 versions of the same argument. It has either a 0 for all sounds that are playing, a 1 for components that are playing, and a 2 for non-components that are playing. If I go to type and I type 0, I will now see all of the sounds that are playing, component or not component. And you might be asking, well, how can a sound play without a component? Well, a sound can play without a component in Unreal quite simply. It can play whenever you trigger a play sound 2D, play sound at location, anything that is a one-shot that gets cleaned up, that doesn't get an audio component and then you're playing, or you're setting a reference on the audio component and then playing it, will generally be a componentless sound. And they do this so that it can stay very performant, because if every single sound that was really just playing a one shot, if we added components to all that, we're looking at thousands and thousands of components for something that doesn't really need to track them. The reason we want to use components, on the flip side, if we are caring about where something is. So for instance, this vehicle, this clear hatchback, that clear hatchback, as it drives away and it culls off, we'll see it in the distance, just driving away. It's our car going. Now, that car, really important that the engine is on that car. Be very weird if the sound of the engine played there, then the car drove away and I didn't hear it. So that's where we would want to have components. If I type this to type 1, now I will get all of my sounds that are based on components. And you can say, well, it looks like we didn't lose very many. And in some cases you're right, but also you're wrong. And that's fine. That's why you're here, watching me, learning, clicking subscribe, and being a pal. Already now we know we're going to have more component problems than non-component problems. So the kind of functions that I'm going to be looking for is how we're going to find it. Now, there is one other type of sound that we probably want to be able to profile, and I've spoken about it a few times. It's a virtual sound. A virtual sound is a sound that is playing, and it's important that it's tracked that it's playing, but it doesn't have any volume. We couldn't actually hear it. By default, I actually like to have virtual loops off, and that's just because in a lot of games, the virtual system in Unreal is very performant and it's very good at handling thousands and thousands of virtual voices. If you come from middleware, lots of virtual voices, usually big problems. And the reason it's a bigger problem in a middleware versus something like native, like Unreal, is that Unreal has that obvious object tied lifetime. So it understands where the virtual voice and the actor that's emitting that virtual voice, like why or when it's going to come back in. It can do a lot of performance optimization via like the significance manager that will change tick rates, change update rates based on how far away components are. And the reason that it's such a big problem if you're using like Wise or Fmod is that it doesn't have that very key piece of information that has this issue with, when do I stop it? And so having 1,000 virtual voices, usually pretty bad sign, because there's a lot of updates and stuff that's happening because that data needs to get shuttled between Unreal side and whatever middleware you're using. The virtual loop side, if I actually turn this light on, you'll see what it looks like pretty quickly. Let's see if we can maybe turn off. There we go. If you have a very dense world where you have like lots and lots of music speakers or loudspeaker system or something like that that's actually taking up tons of virtual voices, that's not necessarily a bad thing, unless you have hundreds and hundreds of them where you start thinking about how can I cull them so that that doesn't happen. But if you find yourself in a screen full of noise, of blue noise, then this virtual loops command here, where we have AU3D visualize virtual loops for 1 for on and 0 for off. We'll slowly get rid of all those. That is what is available to you in native Unreal. And now I get to show you the really cool stuff that's happening at SweejTech with the Audio Inspector. The Audio Inspector is this little editor window that runs, and we can move it wherever we like, and we get a very comprehensive, very sort of mixer-friendly version of how to look at sounds. The SweejTech Audio Inspector is going to give me values like how far away something is, the volume of it, the sound class of it, the attenuation, occlusion low pass, the angle that it's at, the azimuth angle that it's at, the elevation that it's at, who owns it, and there's a few. Now I could go into this, I can turn off, let's say maybe we don't care too much about occlusion, Maybe let's give it a sound class because we know they're all master. Keep the name, keep the distance, keep the volume. Attenuation, yeah, that's probably a good one actually to keep that. Angle to listener, azimuth, for the azimuth and elevation, this is for viewing angle, so azimuth being the angle that it's approaching the camera, and elevation being the vertical angle of that. We'll keep the owner. Maybe I'll get rid of elevation and azimuth just for right now. I'll try and keep it nice and thin. We have this, which is showing us actually the sound waves. It's going to show us what's playing there. It's going to show us the meta sounds that are playing, and we get a very comprehensive look at actually what's going on here. Now you can see all of our virtual voices, which are grayed out here, which is really handy. We can see that actually there's 80 total voices that are happening here. And we even get a master volume output. At the moment it's negative 180 dBFS, but I think that's because I've clicked on something. So we actually get total voices of 80, which is a lot higher than the 31 that we thought we had in AU Debug.Sounds. While you're playing, or even actually in real-time mode, at the moment this one doesn't actually have a real-time scene. I can't show you the real-time mode, but if I pause on this, I can playing through, have a look and say, geez, I thought there was supposed to be some of these shoe sounds. Where are those at? And I find out like, ooh, okay, these shoe sounds, 5,000 units away, negative 34 dB. So playing pretty loud for 5,000 units away, right? There's an attenuation for them. That's this pedestrian long. There's an angle they are to the listener, and there's no owner. So at the moment, these are probably some non-component thing. If I want to check on any of these, I can just double click. I'll open up the meta sound. If I double click on that spot in the meta sound there, if I double click on the attenuation, I'll get the attenuation that they're using, so I can kind of jump in, do some really quick tweaks, and sort of work out what I'm doing there. If I had the sound class open, like if I turn this on, and then I double click the sound class, I'll see the sound class that they're set to. I guess what I really like about this audio inspector is that I can kind of stay in mixing mode. I can stay in just sort of tweaking attenuations, looking at things, making sure that I'm hearing the right elements and making choices, as opposed to like opening the content drawer and being like, oh, okay, let's find a meta sound. And I gotta like find, okay, I think it was pedestrian, ped, maybe, right? And it's like already I'm just like, oh, geez. Then I've got to like find, it's not even one of those, so it must be somewhere else. Whatever it might be. I kind of go in here and then I turn this down to like 0.2 instead of 0.3 and then go back and hit play again. It's really tedious. And when you're working on something that has a lot of voices or you're looking for a specific sound, having that Debug.Sounds window really quite cumbersome. That's not to say that you couldn't filter parts of it. I just don't think you can filter it like this. If I wanted to find that pedestrian, I can start typing, maybe it was it pedestrian? Let's find out if it's even playing. What are we looking for here? Vehicle siren. Let's look at our hatchbacks. I get all of our hatchbacks. I can see that we have a hatchback full of hatchbacks. And these hatchbacks, I get their distance. I can sort of sort them by distance or by volume. In this instance, you know, if I click them that way, I'm going to see all the ones that aren't playing. If I sort them by volume, you just do it by clicking any of these columns. So I can sort it by volume. Maybe a clearer thing might be like if we look at this leave behind, which I think the leave behind are kind of the name of the demo or something like that, because there's sort of music leave behind and these leave behind. We have something that's 25,000 units away. That should already raise some flags. However, it also says origin, which I think is absolutely super cool, because one of the most common mistakes that I think I've made, because components have local space and world space being, you know, here versus local space from the parent or from the component itself. Like one car, and then its local offset might be like just to the wheel, and it'll say like, oh, 100 units. But if you actually play a sound at world position 100 units, you get it 25,060 or 160 units away, which isn't exactly where you wanted it to be. This means, especially with that little origin tag there, it's going to tell me like, hey, there is a music piece playing here, but it's a long way away, and I don't think you need to worry about it too much. It will give me the owner as well, so I can even double click the owner and it'll show me, but it gives me access to doing that by just clicking on the owner. Clicking on the attenuation gives me that, clicking on the sound class gives me the sound class, clicking on the meta sound gives me the meta sound, even clicking on the wave files or the sound waves gives me the sound waves. very, very quick to access any of my components. You can see if I tried to do this with the debug commands, I would be stuck because I would do this, and then I would have to look and try and find music leave behind. There we go, that first one. Then I would go into my content drawer, and then I would type music leave behind, new mix meta. Yes, it's like one of these. And then I can access it. Jesus Christ. When we pause, if I take away this debug component again, when we click on one of these elements, there it is. You can see that music leave behind. The one that I've highlighted there is actually showing me in the volume wires where it is. Now it's showing me that it's quite hot, right? It's a red, and the reason it's red here is that I've set it to VU meters. Just find them really nice and clear, the red being the loudest ones and the greens are being the softer ones. And if you're used to like an old school VU meter, that's what we're looking at there. There's a few different options. You don't have to color them in VU. If I go into my editor preferences, and then I find my SweejTech Audio Inspector, one here, you can see I've got it in VU meters. You can have it in relevance, you could have it in distance, what colors, and that just helps me determine, okay, which ones are loud, which ones are soft, and I can kind of look at that in the text as well. One of the ways that Unreal normally does this is just by the volume output, or by attenuation, because they're usually so tightly tied together. But I really enjoy the way that this works, because I can kind of see, here are all the one-shot traffic things that are happening. I already know that there's this many. I already know how loud it is and what attenuation they're using. And I can kind of correlate attenuations and be like, oh, that's interesting that this one, you know, is 2000 away, but it's not very wide. So it's like a different sound source or a different version. Some of them are a little bit tricky to catch, especially one of the old tricks that I used to do was just screen recording the sounds debug window, having that running all the time and then stopping, like going back and replaying it, things like that. So with this method, I can just hit pause. I can kind of click on any of these that are playing. It's going to show me where they are. It's going to show me how loud they are, and can evaluate from there. Maybe write a list of all the things I'm not sure I want to fix, and I could just go back in, clear out the version here, and get some horns, and I could just click on absolutely everything. It is so easy to get stuck in just wanting to profile and profile and profile and get into the point where you get to this stage and you're like, how do I even mix this thing? For me, mixing always starts from, are the sounds that are supposed to be playing? And if the sounds that are supposed to be playing, if they're playing, then I can look to start mixing. If you're interested in more of this, check out the Discord, jump onto the SweejTech Audio Discord and start saying, hey, I want some things, and we'll see what we can shoot across. There's some pretty powerful tooling here, so there should be no excuse to making sure that all your sounds go in first buggy and then bug-free. Thank you so much for checking it out, and I'll see you next time.